Attention Bajoran workers. Quark has Cardassian security codes 1 through 7. Do not believe anything Garrick says about my posturing to impress Major Kira. And Jake Sisko saves the day again. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, everybody.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Deep Space Nine Season 3, Episode 7, Civil Defense, directed by Reza Badiyi, written by Mike Crone. Do you remember Reza?
Yes, I do. Very nice guy. Good energy on the set. Well respected by the actors, yeah.
Great. And also, yeah, the elephant in the room is, dude, not only did Jake Sisko save the day, but Jake Sisko saved the day twice in one episode. Man, you are Gul Dukat's new rival. Like, it's you and it's Dukat versus Jake all the way to the end.
It's funny because as I was watching this episode and I see myself, my character working with OBrien a lot, it made me think that if Jake had gone into Starfleet, he would more than likely be an engineer. It seems like they were like gearing him up to, like, you know, he knew all the conduits, he knew all the stuff. Well, he was like OBriens Apprentice almost.
This is exactly what one of the big things that I came out with and wanted to talk about too. Might as well talk about it right now. Is that, I mean, you could tell that they were grooming Jake to be the next Starfleet officer, you know, until they decided to make the big change that we talked with Robert Hewitt Wolf about. But they were grooming you not only to be Starfleet, but specifically to be an engineer. You know, you were his apprentice, Chief's apprentice, you know, and it's very clear in this episode. And then you kind of trace it back. Every episode that has you with Chief, it's specifically apprenticing, being an apprentice of his, and about engineering stuff, this and that. It's really interesting to see where that would have gone, you know?
Yeah. And you know, it's great for me because one of the things I was reminded of in this episode is how fun it was to work with Colin Meaney, who is he's a real joy to work with. He's super talented as far as being ready to go when they start rolling camera.
Well, if he's such a joy, then don't call him Meanie. Sorry about that.
I'm not going to touch that. I won't touch that. But yeah, so I mean, that was what I gathered right away out of watching the beginning of this episode. It was clear to me that they were grooming me to be in the engineering branch of Starfleet, and it seems as though Jake was doing well because he was able to hold his own with the chief of engineering, right? He wasn't really being groomed by one of the lower level up-and-comers. I'm working alongside the chief, the top guy, and, you know, I'm getting firsthand experience on how to take stuff apart and put it back together.
Right. Nepotism. Chief's kissing up to the boss. He's like, see, look, I got, your son here. Of course, it doesn't hurt that you are helping him presumably for free. So he's probably loving every second of it too. But
hand me that thing.
I can't help but think, what if they never made that decision to kind of flip the script, you know, and have Nog join Starfleet and have you become a writer? I mean, this is only the 3rd season, right? So that means presumably by the 5th season or so, you'd be going off to Starfleet, you know, Starfleet Academy. And then maybe you would be, you know, doing the thing that Nog was doing, which was doing the training on the station. Then you become, you know, an acting ensign and you are, you know, an engineer, or you don't go to Starfleet and you do what Rom ended up doing, which was Rom became like a station engineer. Because he's such a whiz with computers and whatnot. So anyway, these are the kind of things that as Star Trek fans we look at, and we can't help but think what would have happened had they not done that little flip. Would have been cool to see both timelines go off, you know, diverge there.
Yeah, and it seems like Jake always has that in his back pocket. I mean, once you learn that kind of level of stuff, that you don't really just forget about it. So it's just a skill set that he has in his back pocket, and I like the way that the interplay between Colin and Jake, and OBrien and Jake. It's a good interplay,
right? And that's something that was kind of lost later on once they decided not to follow that anymore. Then the relationship between Jake and Chief OBrien kind of dissipated, but it would have been cool to have, Chief and his apprentice, and then Jake and his mentor go through the whole 7 seasons.
I think so. And I also right away heard some of the Technobabble lines that we get in Star Trek. And I was thinking to myself, I think the first line that I delivered in this episode, something about subroutines to run the ore processor.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was done in a voiceover studio. I don't think that line was in the actual script. They might have added that. Yeah. You can tell because I can hear the difference in the pitch and sound between that shot, which doesn't have me on camera and just has me talking about subroutines. And then when they cut to me, I have a different tone and sound. And that was one of the hard things to match in post when you're doing the voiceover work, was the exact pitch and sound that you were delivering on the set.
Right. When I noticed that the most is in exterior shots on, movies or TV shows or whatever. And you can tell it's a windy day because the actor or actress's hair is kind of flying in the wind. So it's going to be ADR. Right there, you already know it's going to be ADR if there's hair fluttering around, right? And you watch them and they're talking to each other like 20 feet away. They're like, don't forget to pick up the power coupling, right? Or whatever it is. But then in the ADR, they're not matching that. They're like 20 feet away and they're like, don't forget to pick up the power coupling or what, whatever it is. Like you could tell it doesn't match like the physicality of the person's, like their veins popping out, their neck is strained. And it's it's tough. It's not an easy thing to match. And especially with the line you're saying, you weren't even matching what you did say on set. They're just completely putting you in cold.
Exactly. So here I am, and then it's and it's a Technobabble line. So that's like the combination of all of those factors put together. And so I noticed it right away. I said, okay, this is definitely done in ADR. They definitely added this line, and it's okay. It just stood out to me. The other thing that they do for those out there in the audience is that they actually add grunts and breaths and sighs.
I think I noticed one on you too.
Right, when I was crawling through that through the tunnel, you mean?
No, I didn't notice it there. I mean, I'm sure that was the case too. I noticed it when I can't remember, when the three of you were like, you had just done something or finished something or no, I think that's what it was. Like it didn't even make a dent when you guys were pushing that cart, and it didn't even make a dent. And you kind of went like this, and it was like, you were like, ah. Now I didn't know if that was on set or if that was ADR,
Right. That one, I didn't hear that one specifically. I did hear the grunts inside of the, when I was crawling up the conduit to get to the hatch. Obviously, the sound is different inside of that little conduit, so they're going to do anything inside that conduit would be done voiceover work in post-production. Mm-hmm. So I remembered that. But I also remember crawling in that space, and I remember Colm saying that he laced the inside of that with spiders. And and he knows how much I hate spiders.
But spiders love you.
Yeah, well, then he says, go ahead, go in there. And I remember really being terrified, actually crawling inside of that little thing, because I have claustrophobia in general. I'm not the best inside of closed spaces. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, when he added the spiders comment, there's no light in there, so I don't know what's inside that thing. But I just remember that's how much fun we were having, just kind of playfully,
wow,
stuck in that little room there.
Maybe you should call him Meanie then.
No, I should
By
call
the
it
way,
sneeze.
guys, everybody at home, Cirroc and I are both fighting off sneezes right now. So whoever sneezes first loses. It's
It loses.
like we're both
Loses the
sitting there,
game, yeah.
we're both talking. We're like, oh God, like
I
we're
don't know
supposed
what
to-
it is. I've
I
been
know.
sneezing a lot lately. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
me too. But I think we can. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see if we can power through. I mean, life is tough. Sometimes you have to fight a sneeze, I guess.
The other thing I remember is how that outfit I was wearing was so. You got to be really thin to wear that outfit. It was just, there's nowhere to hide.
I did notice there was extremely high waisted.
Super high waisted, and then not the easiest thing to to go around. And there was that one part where I kind of pulled my sleeves down because everybody had their hands protected when going through the fiery tunnel, and I was thinking to myself, I wonder how I was able to get enough slack to pull those sleeves down because that thing looked like it was just barely fitting on me. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't remember that. There are some pretty iconic Jake Sisko outfits. That one I didn't really remember. I kind of was looking, I was like, wow, it's just like a big, long brown onesie. And it makes you
Yeah.
look like you're all legs. All legs, baby.
Yeah, I think that one didn't last too long. That was the spurt. This is the part in the episodes where I start really shooting up. So they can only make adjustments so much.
Yeah. Good old Garrick could have hooked that up.
Yeah, but it's funny because when I was watching this episode, the thing that I thought of the first thought that came to my head was the password protection that's on your phones now, which didn't exist. Just for everybody out there, there were no cell phones and there were no passwords on cell phones when we recorded this episode. But the way that the computer was, reacting to them typing into the database and then say, okay, now you're level 1, level 2, reminded me of how an iPhone locks when you try to enter the wrong password. And first it locks for like 1 minute, then it's like 10 minutes. Next thing you know, it's got a 1 month lock on it.
Right. And what it reminded me of similarly was that when they were asking Garrick to do things, I think it might have been Dukat, but I think it was Garrick. And he said, they're like, hey, can you do this? He's like, I'm trying, but every step of the way, it's having me prove that I'm me or prove who I am. And I was like, that's just like when you're trying to get into your bank online or you're trying to do something online. And it's like, what was your first grade teacher? What was your favorite band's name in high school? What street did you live on? Like, that's what it's doing all that stuff before we actually had those security codes and checks.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking that the technology actually emerged after these concepts were, put forth. And just interesting to see how the world works and how things play out. So
totally. And I just love the idea of Garrick going like, my first grade teacher was, Gull, whatever,
Yes.
And the street that I was born on, if you must know, was Apple Tree Lane.
My father's name is
my mother's pet's maiden name.
Yeah. So yeah, it's crazy how Star Trek is just so many different things that they've introduced into the popular culture, things that actually exist to this day, and that's one of them. The password protection, the and these kinds of things,
all kinds of stuff. Yeah, like the personal access device, the pads, or whatever, and then now we have the iPad, laptops, things like that, sliding doors, and they're even working on warp drive right now. The one that everybody wants is teleportation, right? Transporters. That's the one that'll trump them all, man. If we can get transporters, whew, that's it. We win.
Yeah, when I think of transporters, I think of the movie Spaceballs with Mel Brooks.
Why didn't anybody tell me my ass was
so big? So don't be the first guy on the transporter machine.
No. Don't be the first.
Don't be the
let
first.
Other people test it out.
Yeah. There were some NAMs in this one. I thought you were going to hit us up with them. Did you notice any of the NAMs?
No, I got a rule of acquisition, but I missed the NAMs. Let's hear them.
Well, the NAMs came in at the end when.
Oh yes, you're right. Grand Negus Zek,
Right.
and Rom. You're right. I actually put that. That was the funniest thing where he goes. He says, Quark reads the line about what Odo evaluated him as. He says, a self-important con artist who's nowhere near as clever as he thinks he is. He goes, 2 hours ago, you said I was the most devious Ferengi you ever met. And he's like, I was trying to be nice. We thought you were going to die.
I thought we were going to die, yeah.
And he's like, well, who's more devious than I am? He goes, Grand Negus. And he says some other guy. He's like, name one you actually know. He goes, your brother Rom.
Rom?
I know. So rude. But you're right. Absolutely NAMs for Rom and Zek. But the others, what was the cousin's name? Cousin Gyla.
Yeah, Gyla, and the one who owns the moon.
Yeah, I think that was Gyla. Yeah.
So they were just naming a bunch of them, and I thought it was funny because actually I really enjoyed that little interplay with them at the end.
Me too, more than I expected. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great little walk away, especially with Odo saying, "Yeah, well, that's when I thought we were going to die." So that's why I was being nice to you.
There was a lot of good humor in there, and I'll put that as number 2 best humor of the episode. Number 1, I thought, although it was less laugh out loud funny, but it was just more like, for me, it was funny to imagine the writer's room when they came up with this, was when Dukat shows up and he's talking all that shit to everybody. He's like, oh, I'm so cool. I'm so proud. And boy, you guys sure need me. And we're going to have a permanent Cardassian presence. And I call all the shots. And he says, all right, transport me out. And then the program says, attention, Gul Dukat. If you are seeing this, it's because you are trying to flee the situation.
And abandon your duties.
And so it like flips around on him. And I thought, I can only imagine how fun it was in that writer's room when they're figuring this out. And they're like, how do we get Gul Dukat to say, what's the twist? And somebody comes up with the idea of he tries to leave. And then his higher up had a program similar to his own that said, you're not going anywhere. And I just imagine everybody in the room going, oh my God, that's perfect. That's hilarious. Gul Dukat, transport. Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. I thought it was a great twist. But I thought you were going to say the number 1 on the comedy was the interplay between Garrick and Gul Dukat, because I enjoyed that as much as anything else. Because they just one up each other on these.
How about when Garrick cock blocks Dukat, dude? when
oh yeah,
he's like trying to impress Major Carey. He's like, well, it shouldn't be a problem for a keen Cardassian mind such as myself. Like that. And Garrick's like, dude, it's not going to work, okay?
Stop it. Stop it. She's not interested in you.
It would have been great if Bashir chimed in with a line, was like, dude, you're barking up the wrong tree, man.
Yeah, you know what? I just loved it because he said, oh, yeah, Garrick groveling in the corner. Oh, worth the trip already. And I love that. I mean, he's such a menacing guy in his performance as Gul Dukat. He's so great. And then Garrick holds his own so well. And he says to him, you've always been short-sighted, just like your father.
Yeah. Because in Cardassia, dad jokes are like mom jokes to
right.
Oh, he's talking about your dad.
Oh, your daddy. He said your daddy is short-sighted.
What'd you say? Who's short-sighted?
My dad ain't short-sighted. He's got long sight. Oh man!
Cardassians.
Just the interplay. But I love the way they go back and forth at each other and just try to rip each other a new one. So I just thought it was very special.
I agree. I really like that a lot, and you're right. That's definitely up there. And then they start then there was a little exposition we were given in their little jarring ways, like, his only flaw was trusting you. He goes, funny, at his trial, your father said his biggest flaw was that his ambition outweighed his patriotism. it's kind of like they're giving us also a few little nuggets for us to go like, whoa, he knew his dad, and what was this and what was that, and all stuff that we're hoping to hear more about.
Yeah. I should have had you executed. You tried. You don't remember?
Who do you think delivers their lines better out of those two?
I don't know. They're on par with each other. I can't really. It's hard to say. Because I wrote down lines from both of them. Dukat says at one point to Kira, "You'll find I don't appreciate being talked to in that tone."
So good.
While lasers are like flying across the room, like, and he's so cavalier and casual, like, so you guys hiding from the lasers, huh?
And I always like to imagine what the line is like on the page. To picture what was the writer and what was the actor. And the lines for him are beautiful and amazing, but the actor does bring so much to it. Like when, for example, when he says, "You can all rise now, you're safe for the moment," right? Mm-hmm. That's a good line. You're all safe. You can all rise now, you're safe for the moment. But the way he delivers it is like a teacher talking to kindergartners. You know what I mean? Like he's like, "You can all rise now, you're safe for the moment." Like he's so like, "Oh, I care about the well-being of these little idiots,"
Yeah, and the other little things that he does, which you don't know if it's on the page or not. I liked when he went into Sisko's office and flicked the baseball off the table. I don't know if that's written or not, but it played well in the scene. It was like, there's a new boss, I'm in charge. And, it's a subtle thing, but it just goes to like how menacing and what a control freak Dukat is.
Let's ask Ira at some point. My bet is that it was on the page. That's my guess. That's my instinct there. I'm not, obviously not sure. Or maybe the director. That's something a director might suggest too. He might be like,
just why don't you sit here? Yeah, sit in Sisko's seat. Yeah, and then it could be a director's suggestion.
Yeah.
But he just plays it so well. He just kind of lurks when he's behind Kira, the way he's like over her shoulder hovering, in this kind of perverted way. There's just so many things about him that says creep, 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 but it's good for television and it's good for the interplay.
While we're on that subject, I was trying to remember, there was one other thing about exactly the point you're making, where the actor added something, not just a good delivery, but there was a choice that he made. And I bet it was the actor. This one, I think it was the actor, is when he says, when he first shows up and he says, "I must admit, it piqued my curiosity when he saw like the distress call from himself." And he says, well, you are in trouble. Well, all I have to do is enter my command code and shut down the program. But he added a clap in there where he goes, "All I have to do is enter my command code and shut down the program." Like he added this little, and I was like, I think that's an actor choice. And it was so good. It's so like I'm so cool and you guys are so pathetic, love it.
Yes. And in the same vein as what you just said, because, it just brought up another moment in that episode. Right. At the end where Sisko takes out the isolinear chips from all of the computers and he figures out how to neutralize the whole thing. Right. He does he leans against the wall, slides down, and he does like something with his hands, like, "Yeah, that's it, I got it."
I know that. Yeah, I looked at it twice because I noticed the same thing. He had the two things, and he was holding them both differently. And he went, he like cheers them. He went clink, like these. He went clink, and then he went, shh, and he like pointed at the thing, like, "I got you,
got you." Right. And there's no way they wrote that. There's no way that they wrote that.
Totally agree. Absolutely, that was, at most maybe the director said something like, "Give it like a sigh of relief," or "give me something," and to where it was up to him what he wanted to put together. And it was a double move. It was like a chink chink, "I got you," and then it was like,
and then yep, he did a little cheers to himself, and it was great because it was like, figured it out. So like little things like that, I think, are just ways in which the actors throw a little bit extra into the performance, something that's
Mhm.
not on the page, that just shows that they understand what's going on, in the moment of the story, in the script, and they just put these little emphasis on these little punctuations that accentuate the story, and I think it's great.
So, real quick, sorry to interrupt. We do have to run to our break, but when we get back, first we'll hit those trivioids that didn't make the cut, and secondly, that scene that you just mentioned made me think of an old song from the 90s. And we'll say what that is right after the break on The Seventh Rule.